Hello and welcome, I'm Arumba. Thank you for joining me. Let's play some more tutorial series for Crusader Kings 2. So we last left off talking briefly a bit about how every time you raise a army, you can't separate the men from the location that they came from. So you're going to have an individual little contingent from each barony, each temple, each city, each independent vassal. We didn't yet have a chance to talk about how actual combat works, or what any of the stats of the various unit types are. So this is part of the game that we're going to cover. We're going to probably spend the next 10 minutes talking about it. However, if you don't care and you just want to win, just follow this basic advice. If you have more men than they do, you'll probably win. That's really all that matters. Unfortunately, for all the complexity of the combat system, 9 times out of 10, it just comes down to who has more men. Technology, leaders, good terrain, bad terrain, it's somewhat important, but mostly just have more than they do, and you'll win. So, that little warning being said, let's talk about how this stuff actually works. So, probably the best place to begin would be to talk about the 3 phases to combat. Every time 2 armies meet in a province, they will fight. 100% chance there will be combat when they both reach that location. The only time that statement is not true is if, let's say, a neutral army, let's say, okay, so you, like, my 2 armies are fighting, and then a third hostile party comes in who's hostile to both of us, arrives, then he'll sit in this province and wait for the victor and then fight the victor. Because there's no such thing as a 3-way battle. If, on the other hand, a third party comes in and they're only hostile to one of the 2 armies that are engaging each other, they'll join on the side that they are allied with. Even if they're not in your war. And that's very important to know. This always seems to happen down here in the Spanish Peninsula. If you're fighting and you see a neutral army come through, you might find yourself in a position where that neutral army is neutral to you, but they're allied in another war with your enemy, and so because they happen to march through your province, where you're currently fighting them, they'll join on the other side. It's a very fringe case, but it's just something worth pointing out. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on things that are unlikely, but... Alright, so every time two armies meet in a province, or in a county, they're going to fight, right? What they'll do is they'll start off, unlike, say, Europa Universalis 4 or Victoria 2, where you've got fire phase, shock phase, rotating back and forth, etc. In this game, you have 3 phases called the Skirmish Phase, the Melee Phase, and the Pursuit Phase. And in every single case, you start off in the Skirmish Phase. And that phase lasts a certain number of days dependent on what kind of tactic a commander uses. So in this case, we are leading... I apologize for that sound effect, by the way. It's never going to stop as long as I have the army selected, but don't try to bear with me. So as long as... okay, so we're in the center flank. And I call it the flank because that's what the game calls it. I know that the center is supposed to be called the vanguard, and these are called flanks and all that stuff, but the game calls it the center flank. Average morale in this flank. Average morale in this flank. So 3 flanks to each combat. That's the most that you can have. You can have fewer. You can have 2, like in this case down here. You can have just 1. In almost all circumstances, you're better off having more flanks than fewer. And the reason for that is because there is a flanking bonus. These guys will get a combat bonus for attacking an undefended flank, or, someone that's not fighting back. You can see by this arrow, he is attacking him. These guys are attacking the center. This guy's attacking from here. Since he's not fighting anyone heads up, and he is not turned in this direction, this guy is going to get a bonus, and this guy is going to get a bonus. Okay, so let's try to tackle how combat works here. This flank is currently in the Skirmish Phase. In the Skirmish Phase, the armies will stay at a distance. Archers, horse archers, and light cavalry excel in the Skirmish Phase. If you hover right here, you can see the tactic that this flank is using. Over a long period of gameplay, you might even come to memorize these little icons. This is the Harass Tactic. It looks like someone on a horse. This is the Volley Tactic. It's an archer and a bow. It's a quiver. This is the feint tactic. It's got a heavy infantry with a shield icon, that kind of thing. The Harass Tactic is going to provide bonuses to certain troop types and malices to other troop types. In this case, the Harass Tactic increases light cavalry attack values by 300% of their base, so they're effectively doing 4 times the normal amount of damage. It reduces archers' attack by negative 150%. You might be thinking, why would you ever reduce it by more than 100? That doesn't make sense. They can't do less than 0 damage, right? Well, it is possible to have modifiers on troops that take them above regular damage. So for instance, notice how it says Desmond, technology 0.3%. We just started the game 2 years ago, so technology is not a very big factor, but our armies can have bonuses to damage. There are also certain traits that your character can have that might increase combat. You might also have bonuses to certain troop types because they are a retinue. Long story short, it is possible to have 150% normal damage, and that is one of the reasons why these modifiers are larger than 100. So, archers attack minus 150. What you can actually do is if you click this button here, total remaining troops, some people might not even know that this is a button, or that this is a button. You click on that, and then you go to your archers, which we have none, so it doesn't even matter. But if you go here, well let's see what's his tactic. Now he's got archers attack plus 180. He's got archers attack plus 300, so we can't really check it. But camel cavalry offensive, we don't have any camel cavalry, nor do we have any horse archers offensive. So with our harass tactic, the only modifier that really matters is the light cavalry attack, assuming we even have light cavalry, which we do. Now, notice it says values in phases: skirmish, melee, pursue. The attack value in the skirmish phase is 6.0, and then there's a slash. Then it says 18.0, and then it says slash 40.0. Those are skirmish, melee, pursue, respectively. The defense values, likewise, 5.0, 3.0, 8.0, are the skirmish, melee, pursue values. So again, we, right now, are in the skirmish phase. You can tell you're in the skirmish phase because these arrows are blue. Okay? This guy is no longer in combat. That's what that gray little white flag means. He's fled. But this is pursuit phase. So in the pursuit phase, light cavalry are going to do 6.0 damage, and they have 5.0 defense. That is the after modifications value. So the harass tactic has boosted these values in the skirmish phase by 400%. The normal value would probably be 1.5 and 1.25, or whatever the numbers are. Or actually, I'm sorry, it would be 1.0, 1.5, and 5, because there is no modifier on light cavalry defensive for the harass tactic. Does that make any sense at all? I hope it does. Meanwhile, the heavy infantry have an attack value of 0.2, defense value of 5. The light infantry have an attack value of 1, defense value of 3, and that is that. So what we'll do is we'll let the game run for a couple days, and we'll see how tactics change. But before we do that, just take a look here. It says, the following tactics can be used by this flank: General Skirmish Tactic, Harass Tactic, Shield Wall Tactic. So how do tactics get chosen? Like, is it going to choose the right one? No, not really. You don't get to pick. The skill of your commander, his martial score, can influence the likelihood of him picking a tactic. But it's just as influenced by whether or not certain troops are in your army. So unless you're doing something really specific, like having a pure archer retinue with no other mixed troops in it, so that you can isolate only specific tactics that you want. Like for instance, one that comes to mind is that if you're playing as the English and you make an English longbow retinue, it's going to be 500 archers, and you put nothing but archers on an entire army flank, then the only tactic that they can use is going to be one that benefits them, because there are no other types of troops and they can't do the other ones. So there are some fringe cases where it might be something you can influence, but most of the time it's just random. They're going to pick at random, and this is one of the reasons it doesn't even matter. You have no control over it. So we'll let the game run for a couple days on the slowest speed. And unlike EU4 or Vicky2, where you can actually see death happen popping up, you actually have to look in here. You can see yesterday's losses on this specific flank. Oh, hey, that's unfortunate. We just got maimed in battle. So that can happen. One of the drawbacks to leading troops is that you can get injured or killed. Or you can get bopped on the head and become incapable. But we just got maimed. So this represents, we got a little peg leg. So we have 2 fewer martial score, 2 less health. And apparently people who would be attracted to us, like either homosexual men or all women, find it rather unattractive that we're missing a leg or an arm, or as I usually joke around about, how we're missing our willy. But other maimed people like the fact that we're maimed. We're like in a special club, same trade opinion. So that's unfortunate, but it can happen. Okay, so yesterday we lost 3 troops, they lost 4. You're not going to see too many losses in the skirmish phase because most of the damage is done by archers. You'll see some damage done by other troop types, but if you actually look in the text files, or you actually just try to commit to memory what some of these base attack values are, very few troop types do very much damage. These are the base values of light infantry. 1 attack value in skirmish, 0.1 for pikemen. Archers do 14.5, which is very high. In this case, yeah, that's really high. In fact, is that correct? I think that's the average value that they're getting. He's doing 14 and he's doing 20. Yep. So it's taking the average of all of our troop types and kind of multiplying it together. Heavy infantry, 0.3. Light cavalry are actually doing a decent amount, but that's only because this flank's getting that bonus. Hopefully everything I'm saying makes at least some semblance of, I don't know, something that makes sense. It's so complicated. Most damage is going to be done in the melee phase, and that's going to happen in just a day or 2. Now, again, see how it says the following tactics can be used by this flank: 40% general skirmish, volley tactic 60%, next tactic change in 10 days. They will stay in this tactic for a while. However, eventually, one side is going to enter the melee, and there are specific tactics that cause the melee phase to happen. And so we'll see when that happens, when they turn to red arrows. I'm assuming we'll actually get to that point. We should. There it is. Oh, actually, nope. We skipped the melee phase altogether, went straight to skirmish. That's what this little horse icon means. And now, when you're not in the early phase, notice this flank is currently in the melee phase, damage bonus 270%. If you have, say, 2 armies in the center that are fighting, and 1 army that's supporting it, then you'll get a 30% bonus. If you have 2 armies that are fighting in the center, and 2 side flanking armies, you'll get a 270% damage bonus. So you really kick butt if you get both flanked. Likewise, if the center army routs the center enemy army, then he automatically gets 270 on either outer flank, because that's just the way the game works. So we're going to do a lot of damage in the pursuit phase, assuming you actually have troops that can do damage in the pursuit phase. Again, like cavalry, excel in the pursuit phase. They are very, very good at rounding up enemy men and running them down and killing them. Heavy infantry, not so much, 3.9. They do the best in melee, so they didn't really get to do too much this combat. Archers, not so good at shooting people who are running away. Pikemen, 0.2, they're too slow. And then light infantry are just generally cannon fodder. They're not good. You do not want a lot of light infantry except for just having more men. They don't do very much damage. So anyway, we're going to end up routing this guy. And then there's our victory. We got 4.5 war score, a little bit of prestige. Now, the prestige is actually split amongst all of the leading commanders. So we ended up taking 0.6 of the 1.4. Piety can be gained if you're fighting someone who's of a different religion. And then you do gain military technology points for winning battles. A very, very small amount. It's usually inconsequential. So we lost 42 men and a leg, and they lost 144. Very uneventful. They have reinforced. They have some more troops. So unfortunately, as I kind of expected might happen, we're going to need to hire some mercenaries to win. So to do that, we're going to borrow some money from the Jews and then politely ask them to get the hell out of our country. You have decided to expel all Jews from your realm. After your guards round the Jewry up, they are forced to depart in yet another large exodus for lands more friendly to their kind. They are allowed to keep many of their belongings, but you confiscate much of their gold. It shall go to the crown. So there we go. We have 500 gold now that we could use to hire some mercenaries. It's very common to do this in the beginning of the game if you're any character that has access to Jew characters. There weren't any Jews in our court yet. We may suffer occasional penalties to technology for not having any Jews. Apparently Jews were very technological at the time, and that's fine. So we're going to go hire some mercenaries to support our ranks and allow us to beat this army. Because remember what we said at the beginning of this video. I know it's not very clear yet, but give it a couple more explanations. We'll get through the whole explanation of combat. But remember, we need a larger army. 700 men versus 900 men? Stupid. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It's a very, very bad idea. Even if you have, like, Duke William the Bastard, one of the best characters in combat in one of the starting times, you just shouldn't do it. You should never fight in a situation where you have to roll well to win. This is just a game about having more men than they do, unless you want to lose wars. So we will do this. We're going to hire one of the cheaper mercenaries. You can sort by cost. You can sort by name, which is useless. You can sort by total strength, which I think is also fairly useless. Usually you just want to sort by cost. And then you can actually see what their forces are. The Lombard band would come with 600 heavy infantry, 300 pikemen, 300 light cavalry, 300 archers. Now, the 150 gold that you pay to hire them is an upfront cost, whether you hire them for a day or a year. The monthly cost is exactly as it says. It's a monthly expense. So when you are hiring mercenaries, you need to factor in how much is it going to cost to hire them, and then take a look, hover over your income, see right now your monthly balance in our case is negative 0.18. So if we hire mercenaries on top of that, we're going to be at negative 8 ducats a month. Just do some quick mental math. What's 8 times 10? 80. What's 8 times 2? 16. 80 plus 16 is 96. So it's going to cost 96 ducats a year to maintain this mercenary army. So if we have 550 ducats and it costs 150 to buy them, that gives us 4 years of time. So don't go crazy, right? Just because you have 550 ducats, don't buy the big one. You'll go bankrupt in 6 months, and then you'll be shocked to find that they get upset when you don't pay them. They might even attack you and try to take over your country. So give yourself some leeway. In our case, we're probably just going to hire one band of mercenaries because that's all we really need, but also we don't want to spend money that we can't afford to lose. Now, there is one other factor we want to consider before deciding who to hire, and that is preferably picking someone who has some good combat modifiers. We haven't talked about that yet because our character doesn't have any, but mercenaries, almost always, the leader of the mercenary band will have some combat modifiers. Now, this is another one of my pet peeves in the game. You would assume that knowing what the combat modifiers of a mercenary would be important, and that they might show it on the mercenary screen, but no. You have to go to each individual character and then hover over the combat modifier to find out what they have. So this guy's got some morale damage, and that's because he's cruel. Cruel gives a morale damage bonus of 10%. This guy has, he's craven. He's a celibate, craven, fat man, and content with his lot in life, and he's a terrible, terrible person. We don't want him. This guy is experimental. I will talk later about why that is the stupidest trait in the game, and you should never, ever, never, ever, never try to get unpredictable leader. This guy is pretty good with heavy foot troops. And this guy is the winner. Yep, he's the winner. He has just very good overall traits. He has got morale defense and actual defense. So he is the one. We're going to hire that guy strictly for the commander's skill. So we'll hire him. They're going to start with 0 morale. We're going to rally back to Thomond and then meet up with him. And then we'll go fight that army. So, alright, we're going to take a break here. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. See you soon, everyone.